Story time about how I slept with my teacher and got pregnant. A little background information: I was 18 and in 12th grade. I had always had trouble in school, especially history class. And I had always had tutors and everything like that. And eventually I just got tired of trying to get my grade up because I realized that it was never going to happen. So my teacher was 27 years old. We're going to call him Mike. And Mike had a girlfriend. He had been staying after school helping me like every single day, from like 3 o'clock till 5 o'clock. Well, the one day I had this outfit on that maybe wasn't that appropriate, and I was being super flirty with him the whole time. To be honest, I just didn't want to put in the effort to get up my grades. And then 10 minutes later, he started getting handsy, and I told him that if he wanted to do anything, he had to get my grade up for me. So he did just that. Well, for the next couple of months, I would go over to his house to study, like for part 2. Part 2 about how I slept with my teacher and got pregnant. So like I said, I got tired of putting effort in to get my grade up, so I let him hit, and then I was going over his house after school. Well, later on at the end of the year, I find out that I'm pregnant. And because I was 18, I really didn't have to care about what my parents thought. So I told him, and surprisingly, this man was on board with it. He was like, "Oh my god, like, let's do this. I'm so happy." And I was like, what the fuck? Well, his ex-girlfriend found out, so she went and told the school. He got fired, and 3 years later, we're still together raising our child.
Story time about how my husband moved his mistress into our home and is making me pay for all the bills. Disclaimers now my story time. I said I'm on Instagram. By the way, this is my beautiful sister Marcella. She's going on a fancy boat for a bridal shower. Back to the story. My husband and I have been together for 4 years. He did cheat on me when we were boyfriend and girlfriend, but I did forgive him for that. We were engaged for about 2 years, which in my book is a very long time. He kept putting off the wedding, and here was my mistake. I gave him an ultimatum. We either got married or we needed to break up. I decided to tell him the truth. There were several men in my life that were interested in dating me. I kept rejecting them because I thought I was going to get married to this man. And of course, he got incredibly jealous. The next day, we set a date for our wedding. Fast forward to last year. I started to suspect that he was seeing someone else. I noticed that he started hiding his phone from me, and he would always have it on do not disturb mode. So I started getting really suspicious, of course. I started my own business online, and I was selling a lot of products through my website. So I decided to get myself a new car. After that, he started acting even stranger. He would make comments about how nice my car was, and that the least I could have done was bought him one too. There was no way I was gonna buy him a car. His behavior was so odd. One day he fell asleep on the couch, so I decided to look at his phone. That's when I found that he was hiding a bunch of dating apps. He had over 40 conversations on each app. He was a serial dater. Part 2 is up. Story time about how my husband moved his mistress into our home and is making me pay for all the bills. Disclaimer is not my story time. It's on Instagram. This is my beautiful sister, you guys. I'm doing her makeup. When I found all the dating apps on my husband's phone, I quickly confronted him. Of course, he started to lie. He told me his friends downloaded all the dating apps on his phone as a joke. So I pulled up all the conversations he had on the dating apps and I started reading them to him. That's when he said that he was just testing it out to see if he could find anybody, as an experiment. Well, guess what? I questioned him for 2 hours. By the end of the 2 hours, he told me the truth. He said that he had been dating a few women and that he was only doing it because he wasn't happy in the marriage. That's when I told him that he should have just told me the truth because I've been wasting all my time trying to be with him. He then swore to me up and down that he would stop. A few months later, he was acting strange again, and this time I decided to follow him. The first day I started following him, I saw he went to some girl's house. I knocked on her door and I confronted them together. My husband told me he was in love. Part 3 is up. Story time about how my husband moved his mistress into our home and is making me pay for all the bills. Disclaimers is not my story time. I sent me on Instagram. After I knocked on her door and confronted them, my husband told me that he fell in love. It felt like someone had kicked me in the chest. I told him that I just wanted to speak civilly. So we all sat down and spoke for 5 hours. By the end of those 5 hours, my husband somehow convinced me that the best thing was for her to move into our home. Apparently she had financial trouble and her ex was stalking her. My husband told me that the best thing would be for all of us to be in a relationship and that would make him happiest. Otherwise, he would want to get a divorce from me. So I felt like I had to agree. So this girl ended up moving into our house. But my husband decided to quit his job so that he could take care of her because of her crazy ex. And he told me that I was making enough money for the 3 of us. That's when I found myself having to pay for all of our dinners, our groceries, and rent. After a few weeks, I told him that he and her needed to move out or that they both needed to get a job. That's when he told me that I would be putting both their lives in danger if I made them get jobs because of her ex. I know I should just get a divorce, but somehow I think that this can be fixed. I need you guys to give me the strength to divorce him. Help me out.
Story time about my unhealthy obsession with my ex-boyfriend. So a little background information: I was 18 and in 12th grade, and him and I had been dating for about 4 years. And it was around Thanksgiving, so it was pretty much college decision time. I got accepted into UCLA and I was really happy because it was super close to home. And my boyfriend, who we're gonna call Devin, got accepted there also. So I was super excited that we did not have to do the long distance thing. Until a week later, he calls me, and apparently he got some soccer scholarship, so now he's going to Berkeley. So I was like, okay, maybe we can make long distance work. Well, then he tells me that he doesn't want to make it work and he thinks that we should just break up. Well, a week after that, him and I were sleeping together again, so I thought that meant that we were back together. The one day I was leaving his house and I heard his mom talking about me, and she was like, oh, is she coming to the Christmas party? And I was super, super happy. Until Devin says, oh, we're not together anymore and I'm thinking of inviting a different girl. Well, a week later, the party rolls around and I decide that I'm going to show up anyways. Like for part 2. Part 2 about my unhealthy obsession with my ex-boyfriend. So like I said, he thought that he was bringing some random girl to his Christmas party, and I decided that I was going to show up there anyways. So I'm sitting in the car outside of his house the day of the Christmas party, pretty much just giving myself a little pep talk. Eventually I go up, I knock on the door, his dad answers, gives me a big hug, and tells me that he's downstairs with all of his cousins playing the video game. So I go downstairs, and as soon as I get down the stairs, all of his cousins look at me, and they give me the look of like, oh shit, she is not supposed to be here right now. And then I see the bathroom door closed with the light on. So I walk over, open the door, and what do I see? A girl from our school giving my boyfriend head. Well, my ex-boyfriend, but still, he was my boyfriend. So I didn't even give her time to get up before I started wailing on her. Few punches and kicks later, my boyfriend starts screaming in pain. After that, I got kicked out of the house, and I had to pay some medical bills because she bit my boyfriend. And I'm still on probation for beating her ass.
Here's why people have always been afraid of timeout dolls, also known as corner dolls. These are large, realistic child dolls that are posed in a corner with their hands over their face. It's intended to be stood in a corner or up against a piece of furniture, so it appears that the doll is a child who is being punished or having a timeout. Now, the doll's original designer is unknown, but it is thought that they were created in Appalachia in the 1990s. They were once really big at flea markets and car shows. No one really knows why. Maybe because they're so eye-catching. And they usually have like a disturbing sign attached to them saying things like, my parents don't want me, take me home for 25 cents. And people often mistake them for being a real child until they go up and turn them around. Now, some of these dolls don't even have a face because obviously they're supposed to only be viewed from the back. Could you imagine walking up to what you thought was a real child and turning them around and they have no face? Some parents would even put this doll in the corner of their house so that kids would know where to go when they were in timeout. They would just stand and face the wall just like this doll was doing. Some people on the internet were saying that they remember their grandparents having this doll when they were little, and they always thought it was supposed to be a doll counting for hide and seek. This one girl said she distinctly remembered sleeping over one night at her grandma's house, and she was woken up by the distant sound of counting. It was a tiny little voice, and it counted all the way to 30 and then said, "Ready or not, here I come." She started to hear creaking of the floorboards and ran to close the bedroom door. She told her grandma what happened the next day and was told it was just a dream. Now, there are so many stories on the internet about these dolls that really creep me out. I've never seen one in person, but comment down below if you have.
I sustained very bad injuries to my face this month. I'm in the stage of healing when the scar tissue has formed, but it's still very tender new skin. I'm going to have very obvious facial scarring for the rest of my life. The injury starts about an inch above my hairline, goes down over my eyebrows, so on that part, hair will not grow. It continues down my cheek where it's the deepest. I'll probably always have an indentation in the fullest part of my cheek. Then it continues to my jawline. In some ways, it's okay. I'm happy it's just cosmetic damage. My friends are super reassuring, telling me how badass and sick it's gonna look. They say I'm still hot as ever, now a little more sexy and mysterious. But in some ways, it really sucks. I know I'm always gonna be seen first as the girl with the scar, and it feels especially bad when people look at me differently. This week, I had to fly home for a family thing. It was a plan I made long before my injury. I wasn't really looking forward to the pity or people making a big deal of it. I'd rather it not be acknowledged. I'd also met with my dermatologist who said I was at the stage of the scar tissue formation that I no longer should be dressing the wounds. The skin was healing and instead I needed to be applying topical cream and Vaseline to keep the site clean and moist. It also looks a bit ugly. The building scar tissue is very red and tender, and with Vaseline over it, looks slick and shiny. So I get on this flight, I have the window seat and I put my headphones on and drift to sleep when the plane is still boarding. I wake up to this kid, maybe 4 years old, sat next to me, throwing a tantrum. I didn't catch the first part of it and I honestly couldn't understand what he was yelling about. His father said to me, "Can you cover that injury?" I said that my dermatologist recommends that I don't, so no, I don't think I will. He started snapping at me and saying, "There is no need to be so rude. That injury is graphic and it's scaring my little one." I said, "This is my face. The only damn face that I've got. It sucks being told I'm so ugly that I can't show my goddamn face in public." He started to backtrack saying, "Just until it's healed." And I said, "It'll always be with me. Maybe teach some fucking compassion and respect instead of telling a girl half your damn age what you think about her face. That's rude." He actually got up after and I think he went to the stewardess about a seat change because a young couple came and sat next to me a few minutes afterwards. I've got to admit, I felt so low that I put on my sunglasses and had a quiet cry for a few minutes. Am I the asshole for not covering up my healing scar and for being confrontational about it?